Let's talk about Pipeline. Pipeline is a 2019 board game, plays 2 to 4 players, designed by Ryan Courtney, brand new designer. This is Ryan's first game. Came from Capstone Games. We love Capstone Games. Capstone Games makes a lot of fantastic games like The Estates and Arkwright, and coming soon 18xx Irish Gauge, and they're the first people to reprint Splotter Games Bus. So there's a lot of exciting things going on there.
Well, already they're showing a lot of who they are with those kind of games.
Oh, and Ligny also. Ligny is Capstone Games as well.
Ligny or Lignum?
Lignum. Sorry, Ligny. What is Ligny? Capstone did Lignum.
Lignum is my favorite chopping wood game.
Yes. So they are known for...
That's kind of a pick up and deliver.
For reprinting small run board games and deluxifying them, not TM, and making them more accessible and maybe with some nicer components as well. They also did Wildcatters, which is a fun game as well, and Three Kingdoms. So that is Capstone Games. This is, if I'm wrong, strike me down, but I believe I am correct in saying that this is their first original in-house developed board game. I also believe, strike me down if I'm wrong as well, that Ryan Courtney is one of the founders of Capstone, or maybe even the founder of Capstone. Could be wrong about that. I'm probably wrong about that. This will show you how much research I do. I try to do a lot.
Let's just talk about the game.
Let's talk about the game, Trey. Let me read you a little bit about the theme. What is Pipeline about? Pipeline is the refinement of oil has long been part of the government-controlled energy sector. Amassed with an incredibly complex and inefficient system of refineries, the government has felt the severe pressures of worldwide demand and the ever-increasing global standard for refinement. Unable to keep up with demand, that the government has only one option: privatizing the oil industry. This is where you come in. Seeking to capitalize on the new opportunity in pipeline, you start a company in the oil business. You will focus on building a much more efficient pipeline network in your refinery, hiring experts that provide valuable benefits over your competitors, managing the logistics of purchasing and selling your refined oil in the various markets. You will need more than the strong economic skills. Carefully crafting an interweaving network of pipelines just might ensure your victory. You are a jerk who's ruining the world and mining for black gold, as they call it. And, really sort of
right. We are competing oil refiners.
Yeah.
And so the
theme is not like my favorite vibe in our post-apocalyptic nightmare climate change world. I'm not like super down to like be LARPing oil refiners.
Right. It's a nice companion piece with CO2.
Yeah, well, exactly. I'd much rather be trying to save the world. But yeah,
you're profiting on its ending. Yes.
Yeah, nice. we are definitely like
you're right. But again,
charging tickets to watch the Titanic
fall into
sink.
Like, listen, there's plenty of board games where you get to be a captain of industry.
Yes, of course.
And
yes.
you like kind of like Monopoly or something like that. You play a bigwig.
Mm-hmm. Or 18xx.
And we are competing mega mogul oil refiners.
Yeah, I guess, look at me trying to be haughty about this after 18xx games, which are basically just rich people. How many people died building the train system in America?
You're a rail baron.
Yeah, exactly.
You get to be like the top dude.
Horrible. So let's talk about what Pipeline is.
This is okay. You want to do the basics?
Yeah, let's just, for people who've never heard it before, let's talk about what this is. This is a worker placement game with no blocking in it, so it's a little bit of a zhuzhy, but you technically are placing your worker and doing things, although
you're placing a worker on an action space to indicate what your action is for the round.
There are 10 actions you can take in this game. You can take exactly 10 actions, 8 there and 2 outside of it.
Right, there are multiple government
spaces. And the interesting mechanic of this game is you are going to be buying tiles and building a series of interweaving pipes, and through those pipes you will be passing invisible oil, and the farther they go, the more refined they become and the more you can sell them for. So there's a little bit of an 18xx vibe in here where there are sort of 3 companies in this game.
You are building a network.
Yes.
Because there are 3 different colors of pipe, because there are 3 different kinds of oil.
Exactly. So there are 3 colors of oil, 3 kinds of pipe, orange oil can only go through orange pipes. There's no actual theme. It's not like orange is, I don't know, Saudi
Texas
Arabian oil and
crude,
blue is Texan. They
sweet.
give you, there is no theme you can LARP like that.
Could have actually used that. I think.
That wouldn't have been bad if there's just names for them. But basically, you can think of them as like train companies in 18xx. You are, you're investing in these things in order to use them on your lines.
Right, but unlike 18xx, there's no common network that's being built. You're building a completely independent
that nobody else can touch ever. Exactly.
Yeah.
And you're all fighting over the same track, if you will.
This is one of those games. It is an economic game.
Mm-hmm.
And
heavy.
It's heavy.
This is a 3.90 right now in BGG. Doesn't mean much, but I don't think that's too far off. It's a heavy game.
Yep. This is one of those games where your score at the end is simply how much money you have.
Yes.
I mean, there's some things that give you money at the end, which you can call them victory points, but money equals points.
Another 18xx similarity. This is just richest person wins at the end. Also, before going forward, we must say art by Ian O'Toole, the Stanley Kubrick of the board game world. His name sells board games as much as designers, I think, lately. He's done all of Vital Lacerda's games as well as a million other fantastic games, but this is a gorgeous graphic design. This is not a art-heavy game. There's very little art. The only art in the actual game in terms of sort of evocative thematic art is at the very top of the board. There's some sort of a beautiful night skyline of oil rigs in the water. But other than that, it's just his graphic design is so clean and so you feel like you're in an Apple store or something. It's modern and sleek and gorgeous. And this game is in the top of his work, I think, so far. It's just
it's clean.
Yeah,
it's very understandable.
You want to play it. It looks wonderful.
So in this game, here's basically what you're doing. You are going to be buying one of 3 different kinds of crude.
Yep. Yeah, it starts out as crude, this crappy,
unrefined,
almost worthless oil. Yep.
And then you run these 3 different types of crude through your network, and you can upgrade it up to 3 different levels of quality.
Right. And there's also no thematic name to those levels, which would have been nice. Maybe there's just level 1. Level
I think
2, level 3.
Yeah, it's like good, better, best, or something.
Pretty much, yeah.
Like that, but it's just 3. And
it's not like.
And the better quality it is, then the more it is worth. And you can then sell this oil in a number of different ways.
There's many ways to sell off your oil.
There's a market, different markets you can go to, which are kind of simulating international markets.
Right.
And different markets want
They're
different
called refined
things.
markets 1, 2, and 3, and they
but
each
you can
have
also
different...
fulfill contracts. There are international orders that are waiting for it. And so this is one of those, you got to spend money to make money. Once you get money, you have more money to spend to kind of prime your engine, to buy more crude, to refine more oil, and it is very much one of these, you have to understand the cycle, and then it's kind of an efficiency competition as far as who can get their engine going and operating at full tilt quickest.
And this is one of those games where you have a fixed amount of turns in the game. And so in any type of a Euro game, when you have a fixed amount of turns, it's always the key to the game is going to be action efficiency. It's going to be, how do you get more out of each action then? How do you get multiple actions? And there's a couple cool ways the game does it. So the game takes place over 3 years. The first year has 8 turns. Second year has 6. Final has 4. So each turn gets faster and faster, but each year actually takes about the same amount of time because your engine gets bigger and of course your turns get longer. You got more stuff to do
later in the game.
Right. Yeah. So, and anytime there are 4, so picture sort of a cross in the center of the board game. At each side of the cross, there are 2 actions. So there are 8 actions in the cross. And anytime you visit one arm of the cross, you can take one of those 2 actions. And then for $10, you can take the adjacent action on the same cross. So at the beginning of the game, money is so tight. I mean, this is one of the money tightest games I've ever played where, I mean, it comes down to you are $1 short for everything you want always at least in the first year of this game. So every dollar is wildly important. So that extra $10 for an extra action is almost impossible in the first year. I mean,
early on,
I just feel like you can't.
And you have to count every dollar at the beginning. Like that little extra purchase of one more barrel of crude might mean you didn't have enough to operate your machine. That was what you needed in order to produce your. So it's really easy to screw up in this game.
But by year 2, it's very easy to screw up, and we will talk about that. In year 2 or year 3, I feel like if you are not at least half the time taking that second action, you are falling way behind. I mean, you
Right.
you need to be, and by the way, the way those actions come out next to each other on the cross is random in every game and totally changes up the way you play the game. At least I found it wildly differs strategies you can take, because if refined market 1 is next to contracts and loans, that's not going to be very strong later in the game. And if you really need to be visiting refined market 1, you're not going to be taking, contracts and loans in the third year. So that all of a sudden refined market 1 loses a lot of value to you. So
Yeah, and the reason for this is because, and we're just kind of explaining here, refined market 1 does not buy and sell blue.
exactly. Yeah. Every market doesn't do one. And you might if blue is your main thing, you're never going to refined market, or vice versa. So it definitely, the way those come out is wildly important, but you need to figure out how to be getting a lot of actions. And another interesting way they add to that is, as an action, you can refine your oil, but you can also buy a machine that for $15,
Which is a lot.
which is a ton, will automatically refine your oil every turn. So you get this interesting decision of, well, I can't for the rest of the game just refine oil and lose a whole. I mean, if, in the third year, when you have 4 actions, you can't spend one of them refining your oil. So you're going to have machines by then. But in round 1, if you spend your money on machines, you're never going to run them. You're never going to have any money. And then, by the way, they have another rule. If there's a machine touching one of your pipes, you can't run it with a worker. You can only run it by machine.
Yeah,
so
once you've committed to machines, there's actually no coming back.
Yeah, the only way to run it is to spend $15, and you could really. I actually painted myself in a corner in one of the games.
Yeah, what you're talking about is there's a neat thing that happens in the game where initially, money is the tightest thing, and you're in a money economy, and managing your money is the most important thing.
Right.
At a certain point, it's going to shift where actions are going to be the most important thing.
Yep.
Right. And like determining when you can do that, when you can pivot from your kind of like money economy to an action economy is like one of the key strategic things that you're figuring out over the course of the game. Like valuing that little extra action is tough.
Yeah.
But it's what part of what the game is all about.
Totally. And I think this game has a learning curve. I won't say similar, because we haven't played enough to really say that, but this has a learning curve that felt similar to me to Age of Steam, in terms of just, you cannot play this well until you understand the pacing of this game. So
Loop. What's the core loop?
Exactly. But also to understand, what it's like, it's always too early to go to machines, in the first 3 or 4 actions. But at what point can you move into that? At what point can you expect to be needing to be doing multiple actions in a turn? At what point can you expect that you should be fulfilling contracts? And then the contracts thing is also, I think, a really interesting part of this game that I really enjoy. So there are 2 types. So there's basically 3 main ways to sell your goods. The first one is just to refine markets. Very simple. You go there, they have listed prices. The markets all have different listed prices. They're the same.
But that's an action.
That's
taking an action to go to one of these.
Going there, and you are selling them for.
And these markets are
for money.
You'll be familiar with these markets if you have played Power Grid.
Right.
Where like the more that you take out of a market, the more expensive it is. They have kind of a
right. Each market has a buy and a sell. So when you're buying,
it's the same. It's just that like there's not a different value for buying and selling. It's just
no. I mean, when you're selling to these big numbers, and you're usually buying from these small numbers,
right? But for example, in the crude market, like Power Grid, the more crude that's been bought up, the more expensive it becomes.
Right. Yeah. Or like brass, also. Right.
Yes. Exactly. Like
buying up all the
right. What is the mechanic? It's just like there's a market mechanic here, right?
Yeah, and it's a sort of a closed economy. So if everybody's buying orange, and every time you buy an orange, it gets more expensive. So eventually, when you need to buy an orange, now you're spending an insane amount of money.
Or it's gone.
Or it's just gone. Yeah, exactly. But let's talk about another way that you can sell your goods. So there are 2 different ways. There are contracts and there are orders. So contracts can be taken as an action, and then they have a very interesting mechanic to them, which is, you must fulfill those contracts every year for the rest of the game. And if you don't, you lose the contract, which you took a whole action to get, and you take a penalty cube. So there are these red cubes in the game, and every time you take one, it basically doubles how horrible it's going to be. At the end of the game, you're going to lose money. So if you take one, you'll lose
$20.
$20, right? You take 2,
50.
You lose 50. You take 3, 100. Take 4, 150. They start by, if you've taken 10, I think it's like $1,000 you lose. So that's money you lose at the end of the game. A very good game, and a very good score in this game, I believe, is about $100. I mean, sorry, about $1,000. And the best I've done is, I think I did 604 or something, which was to me was quite a good score. But yeah. So anyway, so contracts and orders are two ways that you can sell things as well. And the contracts do not take an action to sell, which is huge. It takes an action to get the contract, but then you can just take your oil and on your turn at any point, pop it on that contract and take money.
Right. So part of the decision you're making is like, is it worth an action for me to get a better price for my oil by going to these external markets, or is it, or is saving the action and kind of like fulfilling a contract, especially if I do it multiple times over the game, especially and I can get the money instantly, and continue doing the things I want to do. Is that the right? This is the space you're in.
Yeah,
in
but you're gambling on yourself because you are betting that you're going to be able to fulfill this contract every turn,
and it can go sideways.
It can go totally sideways because all of a sudden that market could become prohibitive to buy that colored oil at that point. So by age 2, you've realized everybody's gone into orange now, and orange is gone, and now you just can't fulfill this, or you've got to pay $30 to rebuy it at the refined market or something. So there's an interesting thing with that. But then there's also orders, and orders you can never take. It's not an action to take them, but at any point you can just fulfill them, but you must fulfill them completely. Contracts can be fulfilled piecemeal. You can just sell one here, take $30. Aha, I need that money. Do some other cool stuff with it. Fulfill another one.
So we're all racing for these orders. Essentially, like these are big. They pay out best at the best rate in the game, and you can anytime you can fulfill them, you kind of do it instantly.
But you must be able to fulfill it completely in order to take it. And then once it's gone, once it's taken, it's out of the game. And I think there's only 9 in the game, at all. Just boom, that's it. Yep. That's your game. So those are all interesting decisions, I feel. Let's talk about the one piece we have not talked about, which is upgrades. So then there's another element to the game that's separate from all of these, and that is basically asymmetric player powers. So everybody starts
kind of a tech tree.
Yep. Everybody starts out exactly the same, but for an action, you can go somewhere, and for $20, which is a ton of money in this game, you can buy a level 1 upgrade, which is going to be some kind of really exciting rule-breaking power. For example, one of them is immediately take 2 government pipe. So pipe is the tiles that you're using to build your pipe market, your pipe lines, pipe network. And then every round, take 1 at the beginning of the round for free. That's really nice. That's 4 free throughout the whole game, but you're also getting first pick out of things. Another interesting rule-breaking one is you don't pay the extra $10 for secondary action for the rest of the game. Remember when I said you take one action, spend $10, take the one next to it? Well, if you have this power, you never do it. That's pretty cool. That could save you a lot of money. But you just spent $20 for it, which is 2 actions right there. So
and then you immediately do. It's very good early in the game.
Yeah, it can be.
That $10 means less and less later on.
So the first time you take a power, you can only take a level 1. And then you will flip over a little circular disc that will shut down that whole tech tree row for the whole round, for the whole year. There's only 3 years in the whole game.
Right.
So if you want to buy a 2, the earliest you could buy a level 2 is year 2. If you want to buy a level 3, the earliest you could buy it is year 3. So you're only going to ever use a level 3 upgrade once, and it will only be in the 3rd year. And the level 3s are broken. The level 3s are nuts.
You only have 4 actions in the 3rd year too, so it better be good.
Yeah, but they are just balls broken. And there's a reason for that. And I think, and we'll talk about this, I think you are not meant to get them. I think they are nukes. I think they are, well, we lose the game if we allow this person to get level 3. So we all now it becomes a somewhat semi-cooperative game here where 3 of the people out of the 4 must work together to make sure that that person never gets to level 3, or else it's, a nuke.
Right. Because this game has something I haven't seen before, which is, Matt, you were just talking about how when you take something, it locks off, you flip it over. That's not so crazy that only 1 upgrade of a certain type can be taken. The kind of crazier thing is like you can buy 1 or 2 of these each round for $20.
There's only 5 possible every game.
Possible
7
ones.
in the game, you pick 5 randomly at the beginning of a game, so you won't see 2 of them every
The
game.
weird thing though is that you can, in addition to the upgrade purchases you make, you can also block 1 additional kind.
Yeah,
you just say, nobody gets machines.
Yeah.
And you flip that. So after a single person is gone, it's possible that they've locked out 3 out of the 5 techs.
3 out of the 5 gone for the whole first year.
So certainly when the second person goes, then that almost always means that there's nothing left.
If they've bought 2 and shut down 1, then the second person buys 1 and shuts down the other one, or buys 2 and then they're just all gone.
Right. So generally, when you're 3rd or 4th in the player order, it can feel like, I never had a shot I never had
Right.
this option. I'm not playing this game, and I never had a choice about it.
So to me, my feeling, and let's get into this a little bit, because this is sort of the controversial part of the design, I think, or the contentious part of the design. The part of the design we ended up discussing a lot during our plays of why is this here, what is this adding, etc.
Yeah, it's unique.
It is unique. I think that it is not meant to be a main strategy in every game. I think it's clearly at best two people. At best, three people, but usually at best, two people are going to be getting one in the first year. I think all the level ones are good enough to potentially make a purchase of a level one in year 2 worthwhile for anybody. I think they're all good enough wherein, okay, you're not, there's 3 copies of every level one. So pretty much everybody can get one if they want, even in level 3, although I'm not sure those actions will be worth it by then. But I think all the level ones are good enough where everybody could get an upgrade by level 2. Of the level 1 they want. Of year 2. Sorry, everybody can get a level 1 that they want. And I think somebody who doubles down on it and gets a level 2 sets off an alarm for all other players, because the level 3s are so wild. I mean, you pull out one of my little cheat sheets that are in the box there. I just want to read off one of the level 3s are. I have a printout probably underneath the rules there. No.
Oh, wait. Oh, here's the actual rule book.
Yeah.
That'll work.
Give me like just read me off any old. Yeah, so let me just tell you what one of these level 3s looks like. Here's a level 3 for human resources. You may take any 2 actions on your turn. You cannot take any secondary actions attached to any of your main actions. So basically, you just pick what 2 places you want your worker to go to that turn. You are no longer blocked by where the board
this is following
leads.
kind of something that you'll be familiar. If you play a lot of
And you
board
don't have to pay
games,
for it,
you'll be
but-
familiar with kind of like the idea here is that I'm going to get a tech which is going to allow me to break a rule, or do something more efficiently, and then that will become somewhat the basis of my game. Is how do I leverage this asymmetrical advantage that I have? And in this game, these things seem to be really severe.
Yeah.
And so the pricing of how good they are into the game is kind of priced in by people really need to be thinking about, like, I need to make sure that Matt doesn't get this. I need to manipulate the turn order so that Matt isn't going first in year 3.
Yep.
This becomes part of the strategic decisions that you're making.
Right. Yeah, and I think there is some real growing pains with this game. I don't think I played what I would call a real game of Pipeline until my 3rd game of Pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
I think my 3rd game felt like, oh, I'm playing the game now. This is what it should feel like to have played it. In my first game, I was just, I'm just going to start buying tiles because I'm going to take too long to buy tiles, and I don't know what I'm doing, and I don't know, my engine isn't working. And my second game, I'm going to try something. It didn't work. Okay, you can't do that. That strategy does not work. That strategy, by the way, was focus on 1 pipe color only and push it as far as I can and race to the longest pipe of that type. And that doesn't work because then you will run out of that color of oil very quickly, or they will always cost $10 because you're buying only that, and somebody else is going to buy it. It was just not a good idea. You have to diversify.
So it's a heavy game.
Yeah.
It has a steep learning curve.
Right.
In fact, I think I would recommend anyone playing this game for the first time. I think you kind of need to play like a half or more of the first year.
Yeah,
and then just start over.
Totally. I would play half of year 1.
Like committing to a
everybody
full
got
game
it?
of
Let's go again.
Yeah, playing to a full game of this. It's just too unforgiving to expect that you're gonna get it right out of the gate. And you got to get that kind of core loop down in your brain so that you can then start making meaningful decisions rather than almost like random ones when you first start.
And the rulebook has a beginner's recommendations for this game. Now, we're board game snobs. I always say, not for me. I don't need to play the beginner version. I always jump right into the version. The designer himself has said, and after playing, I agree, play the beginner version.
Mm-hmm. You're not ready for the other scoring
Play
types.
the recommended beginner version. There are a couple hurdles that they remove. You're playing the exact same game. You're just not playing. You're playing with
this game
a little bit
needs
of,
all the
without the real
simplification
pain.
it can get for your first play.
There are some the levels of how long it takes to refine oil by level. So to get it from crude to level 1, all those numbers are random. How many pipes it is. So if let's say it takes 4 lengths of orange pipe to take crude to level 1 orange, those numbers are random. It could be 7. So in the recommended beginner game, they tell you to take out all the 7s, because if there's a 7 at the beginning there, it's going to be a very strangely timed game where people are going to be that first hurdle to get from crude to level 1 is going to take.
It makes the game even tighter.
Makes the game so tight and scary. And if you wrongly spend $1, you might as well just leave the game.
Right, but you're not on your first play. You're not going to appreciate how big a difference that 4 versus that 7 is.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right.
Once you've got the game 3 times, then you're like. Yeah. Then you have a much better understanding.
Another big change that happened in between my first and my third game was in the first 2 games, the people who went hard on upgrades won. And in my third game, the person who went hard on upgrades came in last. And I think that's because we realized what it does. Now, some people don't like this in a board game. And I for me, it depends on the board game. I'm going to compare it to Chaos in the Old World, which is an Eric Lang, Ameritrash, asymmetrical, dudes on a map.
Yeah, it's a hybrid
war game. Yeah, fun game, but it has a thing where one of the races, I believe it's Corn, is just crazy overpowered. Okay? And you play the game and you go, well, that's not fair. That's just broken. But the intent of the game is, no. Everybody must work to squash that player. That's the game. That is the game. And until you learn how to play that game, that is the tug of war. And there's a little bit of an element of that as well in Root, which I'm coming to appreciate, which is, the Marquis de Cat at the beginning of the game is everywhere. And you look at it and you go, well, that's broken. That person has 100 warriors and I have 1.
Yeah, whereas I always feel the birds are the unstoppable force. And so must stop birds is the is my mindset going into the game.
But I think there's a little bit of that in the game. I think there's a little Chaos in the Old World in this, wherein upgrades are broken. Upgrades are exactly what they are. They're upgrades, and that person is now better than you, and they do things better than you.
Yeah, not all of them are great as openers of the game, by the way. And so some may make it into your game, some don't. I think having had 2.5 plays now, I have a better appreciation for the balance of the upgrades in relation to the other actions, but also the balance between the various kinds. I have a better appreciation of that. I still kind of have a problem with, here's 5 different tech trees. Yeah. They're going to have 3 different powers each, some of which you may never have a chance to even access. And so trying to look at 15 different tech options and make a meaningful decision about it, that's fine, but you're saying I got to play this game 4 or 5 times before I really have absorbed that.
Well, and we all potentially, but I think a lot of the learning curve also is, okay, if that person's going to take an upgrade, the other players need to make them pay for it because they're spending $20. But by going first, so let's say your first player, your first action when you first look at this game is my first action is I buy 2 upgrades, I lock out a third one, ha. Now I have 2 huge powers, and there's nobody.
So how are people making them pay for that?
So here's exactly how Alfred and I did it when we played with Paul. So Paul went there. He spent $40. He bought 2 very strong upgrades. That was his first play, right? Then it's, okay, we saw what Paul, we needed to disincentivize Paul. We needed to basically make our actions take as many great tiles as we could and buy as much crude oil as we could, so that now he has much worse choices in terms of pipes, and he has much more expensive oil to purchase.
Yeah.
And then to make sure, so okay, now we watch as well. So we actually sort of played it the whole game, and it wasn't screw Paul. It was, I think there's a Chaos in the Old World element to this. The person who buys that now has a flag on their, now that person has a target on their back.
Yeah, I'm just not sure. And this, because there's not blocking
Paul
in
decided,
this game.
Right, but there is to a certain extent, because then the first time Paul went to buy pipes, he bought orange and blue pipes. Alfred and I now are incentivized to take orange and blue pipes and to buy orange and blue oil and to make sure, because now Paul's behind. He's 1 turn behind us. Mm-hmm. His engine is 1 turn behind pipes. His engine is one turn behind in buying crude.
Yeah,
so he's going to get worse pipes.
What people don't understand also, if you haven't played this game, is by opening double upgrade, that's actually your entire cash on hand.
That's it.
So your round 2 move has to be take a loan, which is punitive.
So you are 2 actions behind. Yeah. And now the other 2 players, or the other 3
double
players,
upgrade at the beginning is actually probably a bad call.
Possibly, but
Tom did it really effectively in our first game because he took double upgrade and used 2 different things in order to lay 6 tiles of pipe.
Right. Yes.
And then he was able to take a loan. Turn 3, he was able to buy crude. Turn 4, he was running really good, like
Right.
2 different colors of oil, and one of them was, double upgrade, and he had won the game by turn 5.
So the only
So
thing
it's possible.
right? But the only thing I'm saying is I think it's also possible because you are 2 turns ahead of that person. Is that you need to take advantage of that and be watching what they're you can tell what they want. If you think they're going to buy machines, go buy those top 2 machines.
They went heavy on silver. It's like, okay, I'm going to buy some silver. So their $15 loan isn't going to buy them more than single
one barrel. Exactly.
Barrel, right.
And also, okay, if they want, now they need tanks. Well, guys, everybody buy the $5 tanks real quick. Now they're in trouble. Everybody go buy the $20 machines. Now they're in trouble. So because they're 2 turns behind now, you can their moves are telegraphed to a certain extent, and you can really punish them for those 2 extra turns. And we ended up, I think, being able to, Paul said at the end that he thinks that our actions probably cost him $200-$300 by the end of the game. And
it's always a pleasure to hear Paul say something like that to you.
Totally. But I mean, we're exploring the space. We're trying to, we're actively like, okay. And Alfred had a very strong game, did really well. I think he bought 1 upgrade. I think he bought, a level 1 at some point as well. But, I think upgrades are valuable, but I think going all in on them is, I think it's easy to punish.
Yep. And I don't think it's broken.
Well, let's talk about our thoughts.
Yep.
Tell me your thoughts on the game.
Well, this is interesting because I had my initial reaction to the game was pretty negative. Both the upgrade choice felt kind of random, and the game's very punitive.
Yeah,
it's really easy to screw up and be trapped in this game,
which usually would be something that we praise as an element in a game. No, I mean we like
being trapped in a game.
Well, okay, a game that punishes misplays early. I mean,
I don't think we really celebrate that. I'm just saying it's a little inaccessible. Okay. This is a heavy game. Know that that's what you're buying into, and also that you really can't expect any kind of degree of mastery without a couple plays. So that's a lot, if you don't necessarily love it your first time. And it's easy to be like, if you're coming into this and you're the new guy, you're not going to win.
Right. No. If you never played before and you're playing against people who have played even twice, you have 0 chance of winning.
Yeah. Right. So we had one of these games where we played 5 rounds, and it's like, okay, Tom, the guy who explained the game, Tom won.
Yeah.
We just said, okay, Tom, you win. Yeah. We need to start over.
Totally.
And that was necessary. And then we had a more competitive game, and so I have grown to like this game a lot more.
Yeah.
After having kind of 2.5 plays now, it's the kind of game I'm good at.
Yeah. You are good at it. Well, how much did you have in your third game of it?
I scored 1,036.
Yeah, that's insane. I scored just over 600, and I felt like
I felt like a
noobs. Genius.
And also I was still using the beginner rule of not having any 7s.
Right. Okay.
So there were, and then there's also once you stop playing with the beginner end rewards, you actually have some rewards that can really explode the points.
Right. So that's another thing. There are victory conditions, variable victory conditions. Every game you randomly deal out 3 victory conditions plus 1 that's always there, and those are just different ways of making different things that will pay out at the end of the game. So
you're not ready for them when you first play, but once you are.
Like that.
They can be very determinative in terms of this should impact how you're playing this particular game.
You cannot win without keeping those in mind. I mean, those your main strategies.
They're big enough that there's So this is still kind of a game where you can expect end scoring to be a really significant, almost hidden.
It's half. In fact, mine was exactly half. I went into the game 3. I had $300 cash, and I had 600 after end game scoring. It literally was double my in-game money. And I think that's probably usually what it will be. So I mean, much like Gaia Project, you have to be getting, and you have to look at the end game scoring, and you have to build your strategy around it because you can't win without it. It's just too heavily balanced towards that.
So even though I like this game better, I would probably not say that this is. I'm still not to the point of this is a strong recommend. I think that the group of gamers who's going to really like it is narrow. But I think for the people that play, 200 games of Terraforming Mars, they're going to like this too, I think.
I think so. Yeah, it's real crunchy. I mean, and I think it could have a meta in your group. I think it has a tournament feel to it to a certain extent. I mean, I think the main thing is if you love Brass or if you love Age of Steam, I would be shocked if you didn't love this game. Okay, maybe not loved. I'd be shocked if you didn't
those games
like
better.
It. Oh well, I think to say that it's even in the realm of that is a huge compliment to this game. But I think if you really love those games, I think this is interesting to you. It's worth checking out if you like heavy economic games.
some of this is just it's heavy, and so it feels pretty inaccessible. I'm not sure. Like, there's some errors in the rule book. There's some things that don't feel fully play tested.
Couple
to
typos.
me.
Yeah.
I do kind of have a problem with the upgrade system. It's unique, but I'm still not crazy about it. They're both kind of like the like locking out of upgrades feels like an overcorrection because they're too powerful type of things. Like, so it's like there was more playtesting could have resulted in them being dialed down a little bit, but also been accessible to everyone. And then, like, my final comment is just like, I actually really love like the market aspect of this game. Like, I like games where there's a market and you can kind of manipulate
buy and sell to it,
manipulate it. And I actually wish there was more of that here. It's in some ways it feels like too open, where you're kind of selling for maximum all the time. And I wish there was a little bit more market. Like, the thing that's actually really exciting to me about 18xx games or stock-based games is that kind of like stock manipulation aspect of it. Like, that's the most fun part, and I wanted more of that thing here. Whereas at the end of each year or the beginning of each year, you actually like clear off. You reset the markets, and I feel like the reset is almost like too significant. In the thing, but it's a good game. I'm not feeling the complete. I don't have. I do have some reservations.
You're not dying to play it every day.
But it is sticking in my brain.
Yeah.
I mean, it's heavy in a way a good heavy is, and so it's sticking in my brain. So.
Let me talk. Let's go over my pros first. Okay. Number one, my favorite thing about this game: if you do not have to teach this game, you can play it in 90 minutes. I think you can easily do a 4-player game in 90 minutes of this.
I don't know about that.
2 hours max. We in a 3-player game, we played 2 games back to back in 3 hours. 3 players is obviously going to be a big difference between 4. None of us had to teach it. We sat down, boom, we played it, and it was very quick. I think the longest part of this game is the time it takes to pick your pipeline tiles and build your pipe network. Because you can't just buy them and say, okay, everybody take your turns while I puzzle this out, because figuring out which ones you want to buy is the puzzling out of your pipeline network. There is AP. I did genuinely feel I got much faster by my third game. My first game, I could have stared at it for an hour and my brain was on fire and I still was making bad choices. My second game, okay, I'm starting to see. My third game, I kind of know what the pipes do. There are only a few different pipes. There's only a few different actual ways the pipes twist and turn.
Right.
Then by game 3, I was going, I need a blue little type loop with a silver line going through it. I could quickly scan the board. Does that exist? There it is. I need that. And I was making those decisions by game 3. I think by game 5, game 6, I could do that pretty quickly. I think I can pretty quickly go, okay, I need a blue this, I need this. Here's how I loop it back around. You basically know the most effective way to make things is to make things loop sort of back on themselves and make sort of semicircles. I mean, at least to me, that sort of found I'm sort of drawing a snake eating itself and then going forward again kind of thing. That's sort of the shape that I kept trying to make, and it felt to me like the most effective way to do it, and an easy way also to get other colors mixed into it. I know what a good starting tile looks like now. I want one that has 3 colors on it. That I can build out from. So when I place my worker on it, or at least 3 different pipes on it. Right. So that when I place my worker on it, I can always
there's a lot of interesting
barrels.
things that go into the
totally.
The pipe
but the more I played it, I felt like those decisions were coming faster to me. So I really honestly believe that this is a 2-hour 4-player game when there's no teach and everybody's played it 3 or 4 times. And
with the right people. Listen, if you're the kind of person that is going to be annoyed by people staring at the board on their turn and trying to figure out what it is they want to do, you're not going to like this game.
But to be fair, you should also be doing the same thing on your turn while they're doing that. There's enough. I mean, they might buy your tile, but you can be figuring out your second favorite tile.
I guess what I was going to say, though, is like this is one of those games where you can't rush through certain decisions. Like, you do need to study all the pipe options and figure out what's best. Yeah. And you just kind of have to be like, this is one of those games where sometimes we're just going to sit here and stare at things. Yeah. And you kind of have to be okay with that, because that's the nature.
But I think if you love these heavy economic games, you to a certain extent are fine with it, because you enjoy that.
I know a number of players who have low patience for other people's AP. And they're even the people that like call it AP the most are the people that are least patient with it.
That's true.
And you know who you are, and this is probably not the game for you. Then.
Totally. So one of my pluses to me is it's rare you get a game this heavy that plays in this time frame. I think it does a couple things brand new that I've never seen before. I think the turn order, I've never seen that before, wherein when you decide the turn order, you decide where you're going to put it, but then somebody else could just knock you out of it. So you're not actually deciding your turn order. You're just saying, here's where I'd like to go, and we'll see what happens. I need you to talk for 30 seconds, Trey, while I go get a power outlet because my laptop's going to die.
So the way the variable turn order works in this game is that only half of the action spaces actually allow you to improve your turn order. So you're either kind of like sitting still, in which case you're going to get passed up by other players that take the action spaces that do allow them to improve their action spaces. Or you're actively kind of like improving it. However, if you are going first and you're saying, I want to go first, then the person who's going second and they say, I want to go first. Well, now you're going second. And then the third person plays and like, well, I want to go first. And so now you're going third. And then the fourth person goes and I want to go first. And so now you're fourth. So there's a constant readjustment in terms of turn order where it kind of inverts itself, but only half the action spaces allow you to do that.
So going last in a round is the only way to guarantee that you will go first the next round.
Yes, and so turn order jockeying becomes really critical around these end of year,
which
actions.
Can become which I think is the most important in getting upgrades, especially if you want a shot at getting those level 2s or level 3s. Which is interesting. So that's new. The tile laying, while it could be its own little mini game, I think people really like sort of building their little Tetris thing. That to me is new and not something you see very often in heavy board games, the sort of little puzzle element.
It won't feel
game.
completely unfamiliar if you've been playing a lot of the Uwe Rosenberg games, who are kind of, where you're Tetrising your tiles.
Yeah,
to
like
fit
Feast for Odin. Yeah, or
Feast for Odin,
Patchwork.
Patchwork.
Like that, yeah.
He's got a number of those now.
He
So if you like that kind
out.
of thing, you're going to like the laying pipe aspect of this game. I don't typically love that, but it bothered me like you.
Yeah.
The more I played it, the more I felt comfortable with taking tiles and kind of knowing what I needed. And so you can grok it pretty quickly if quickly means I've played 3 games of this now.
Another in my pro column, I've liked it more every game I played it. Now when I first bought it, I wasn't wildly excited about it. I read the rule. It was one of those games where I was like, I bought it off of the publisher and a review by Shut Up and Sit Down on their podcast. They were blown away by it, and they very rarely, I feel, talk about very heavy games. And if they like it, I usually feel that's a good indication that it is a more interesting heavy game, because I feel like they're pretty hard on games that are not accessible to a wide audience. So I pre-ordered it on that alone, and I read the rule book, and I was like, I'm not getting excited here. Like, it seems like a little cut and dry. It seems a little simplistic. I got it to the table and that first night and I played it and I was like, this is fun. I'm having fun. I'm enjoying this. I'm not dying to play it again. I'm not freaking out about it. Friday, brought it on the table. Game 2, found it really frustrating because I tried something and it failed. But I was so determined and that to figure out what I did wrong. I was really hard on myself after that game because I just feel like I was not grokking the system at all. And then game 3, I felt that wonderful click feeling. And now I'm kind of dying to play it again. Like I feel like
what you want to do is you want to have a game now with all the people who have liked the game and have kind of absorbed it and like let's take it to the next level now. And let's play for realsies now.
But to me, and I very rarely will judge a game on my first feeling of it if I think it's if I see there's cool stuff there, but I'm not like wildly excited about it, because I often feel like it's just I have not yet absorbed the pacing of the game and the loop of the game yet. So until I absorb the loop, it's hard for me to really judge a game. And if I then absorb the loop and like it more, that's usually a really good sign, I think. So I'm really excited to keep playing this. I feel like it's fast and quick and brutal, and it makes me feel smart, and it makes me feel...
any game that can do that.
Yeah, and I want to keep playing it and seeing if I can do better and better at it, and maybe one day cross the $1,000 mark at the end of the game. But that is
we'll play with a bunch of noobs.
Yeah, exactly. That's Capstone. I'm going to give it a recommend, but with a lot of caveats of you better like heavy economic games, and you better have a group that's down to play it 3 or 4 times. But it's definitely
and that rules out
one
a lot
of the
of
more
people.
interesting games I played this year for sure. Very exciting game. Yeah, that rules out a lot of people. Maybe not people listening to this podcast.